Most people imagine that life falls apart in one big moment, a mistake, a crash, a decision so bad that everything changes overnight. But in my experience, that's not how life usually works. The real damage happens quietly. It builds slowly over years while everything still feels normal. One day you look back and realize something unsettling. The choices you thought were temporary were quietly shaping your entire future. My name is Ethan Caldwell, and I'm 58 years old. When people talk about their 20s, they often describe them as the most exciting years of their lives. The years when you are free and discovering who you are. For a long time, I believed that idea completely. I thought I was doing exactly what young people were supposed to do. What I didn't realize was that while I was enjoying those years, I was quietly postponing the life I thought I would build later. I grew up in a quiet suburb outside Nashville, Tennessee, in a neighborhood where nearly every family knew each other. My father worked as an electrician for more than 30 years, and my mother managed a small clothing store in town. Our life wasn't glamorous, but it was steady and predictable. My parents believed in simple principles. Work hard, take responsibility, and slowly build a better future. When I was young, that kind of life sounded boring to me. I remember thinking adulthood would be different for me. I imagined something bigger than routines and responsibility. After high school, I enrolled at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. The first weeks on campus felt like stepping into a completely new world. For the first time in my life, I had full control over my schedule. No parents asking where I was going or reminding me to wake up early. At first, I tried to stay focused on my classes. I told myself college was the beginning of something important. Then one weekend, someone in my dorm invited me to a party. Looking back now, that night feels like the beginning of a pattern that lasted almost a decade. The house was full of students, the music was loud, and the atmosphere felt electric. People were laughing, talking, dancing, and introducing themselves to strangers like they had known each other for years. I remember standing there thinking something simple. This is what freedom feels like. At 19 years old, that kind of excitement is hard to resist. At first, the parties were occasional, a Friday night here and there. Nothing that seemed excessive. But slowly those nights became routine. Friday nights turned into gatherings. Saturdays became bar nights downtown. Classes started feeling less important than whatever plans were coming that weekend. That's the strange thing about drifting through your 20s. It doesn't feel like you're damaging your future. It feels like you're enjoying the moment. Everyone around me seemed to be doing the same thing. That made it feel completely normal. We used to joke about it constantly. Whenever someone mentioned responsibility, someone would laugh and say the same phrase. You're only young once. At the time, it sounded like wisdom. Years later, I realized something about that phrase. Being young isn't just about enjoying life. It's also the time when most people quietly begin building their future. But at 22, I wasn't thinking about the future. I was thinking about the next weekend. After graduating, I moved to Phoenix, Arizona with 2 friends from college. Phoenix felt like a city that never slowed down. There was always something happening somewhere. Sports bars, concerts, rooftop lounges, house parties. We rented a small apartment near Tempe that had thin walls and outdated furniture left behind by the previous tenant. But none of that mattered to us. We were in our early 20s and convinced life was supposed to feel exciting all the time. I found a job working at a small insurance agency downtown. The job paid enough to cover rent and basic expenses, but the real focus of our lives wasn't work. It was the nightlife. Almost every evening ended the same way. Around the end of the workday, someone would ask a simple question. Anyone going out tonight? Most of the time, the answer was yes. Happy hour became routine. 1 drink after work turned into 2. 2 turned into late nights that stretched into early mornings. At 25, everything felt normal. But here's something most people don't notice while it's happening. Time moves faster when your life is built around temporary moments. Years passed before I realized how quickly my 20s were disappearing. Some of my college friends began talking about promotions at their companies. Others started saving money for homes. A few got engaged and began planning weddings. Meanwhile, my life looked almost the same as it did when I was 23. At first, I didn't think much about it. I told myself everyone moves at their own pace. But as I approached 30, something began to feel different. One night I was standing in a crowded sports bar in downtown Phoenix. The place was loud, people were cheering at a game on television, and music was blasting through the speakers. But for the first time, I didn't feel the excitement anymore. Instead, I noticed something else. Most of the people around me looked younger, much younger. That was the first moment I wondered if I had been standing still while the rest of life moved forward. My 30s arrived without any dramatic turning point. Life simply continued along the same path until something forced me to stop and look around. When I was 34, the insurance company I worked for merged with a larger firm. Several positions were eliminated during the restructuring, including mine. At first, I assumed I would find another job quickly. But job interviews have a way of revealing uncomfortable truths. Many of the candidates applying for similar positions had spent their 20s building strong professional skills and experience. Their resumes showed steady progress. Mine looked average. That realization stayed with me for months. While other people were investing their 20s in building something lasting, I had mostly been investing in temporary fun. It took nearly a year before I found another stable job. During that time, I spent many quiet evenings thinking about the years behind me. Something else changed during those years as well. The friends I used to see every weekend slowly disappeared from that lifestyle. Some had families now. Others were busy building careers that required their time. The bars stayed the same. The crowd changed. One night when I was 38, I found myself talking with a group of younger guys at a bar. They looked like they had just graduated college. At some point, one of them asked how old I was. When I told them, one of them laughed and said something that stuck with me. For a moment, it sounded like just another casual joke in a noisy bar. But the words stayed in my mind long after the conversation ended. Man, I hope I've figured life out by that age. He didn't say it in a rude way, but it made me think. Now I'm 58 years old. My life today is much quieter than it used to be. I work for a logistics company that manages regional shipping contracts. My evenings are usually calm now. It's not a bad life. But sometimes I think about the years behind me. Not with anger, just with clarity. Because the real cost of spending your 20s chasing excitement isn't the money you spent or the nights you stayed out too late. The real cost is something much quieter. It's the time you never invested in building your future. Time moves forward whether you are building something meaningful or simply passing the days. And one day you realize those years quietly shaped the life you are now living. If someone in their 20s asked me what I've learned, I wouldn't tell them to avoid fun entirely. Life should include laughter and memories. But I would tell them something I wish someone had explained to me years ago. Your 20s are not just the years you experience life. They are the years when you quietly build the foundation for everything that comes later. And once those years are gone, the future you meet is the one those choices created. If this story made you reflect on the direction your own life might be heading, then maybe it arrived at the right moment. Sometimes hearing someone else's experience helps us see our own decisions more clearly. If you enjoy thoughtful stories like this, make sure you like the video and subscribe, because the right story at the right time can change how we see the years ahead.